Hello, welcome to the fourth episode of Listen to Your Eyes, a podcast from Horizon Therapeutics for people who have a thyroid condition, such as Graves' disease, and are experiencing problems with their eyes. Throughout this series, you can learn more about thyroid eye disease, or TED, and hear from physicians, caregivers, and others who discovered that their eye symptoms were actually TED. My name is Lauren Friedman. I'm a patient advocate and the host of Uninvisible Pod, a podcast about chronic invisible illness and disability. With a background in performance and my own list of chronic illness diagnoses, I'm here to serve this community and bring light into the darkness. Today, we're talking with Christine Gustafson, who has been living with Graves' disease and TED. So welcome, Christine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for having me here.
Well, it's such a pleasure. And I was wondering, to get us started, if you could tell us a bit about yourself and your experience with Graves' disease and with TED.
Oh, sure. Yes. Thank you for asking. So it started about 12 years ago. And at that time, I owned my own little business. So I'm a website designer, photographer, and I work mostly for hospitality, hotels, restaurants. And I just have like some really fantastic clients. And so I'm married and we live in Monterey, California, just up from Cannery Row. So it's like a 5-minute walk to go right into the ocean if we wanted to. And we have a little Siamese cat, Sweet Pea.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we just love her. And so everything was just going along really pretty fine. I'm very athletic, so swim the mile every day, bicycle wherever I go. I've just always been active, very healthy. And then I started losing weight, and I'm already pretty thin because of being active. And but I lost, my clothes were just, falling off of me, literally falling off of me. And I developed a lot of anxiety and just feeling terrified all the time. And and then I noticed that my eyes were looking odd. I thought one of my eyes was closing. People began to make comments like, you really shouldn't lose weight like that because it's dangerous. You could get osteoporosis. And so people around me were starting to notice as well. And I went to a doctor. He happened to be, just kind of a general doctor. And I told him what was going on. And I had a very rapid heart rate. So normally my heart rate's in the 60s, and it was 120. My resting heart rate was 120. I couldn't sleep at night. So,
Wow.
so you kind of picture that, rapid heartbeat, high anxiety, losing weight. And I'm thinking unexplained weight loss. So right away I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got cancer. So,
Right.
but I told him my symptoms, and he's not a specialist or anything, but he said, I think you might have thyroid disease, just my first time out. So I was lucky in that. And they did a test, and and in the test, they came back, and my doctor called and said, you need to go to an endocrinologist today. And I said, today? And they said, yes. And the endocrinologist said it was the highest number she had ever seen.
Wow.
My thyroid numbers were off the charts. And so, but I had bicycled over, I swam the mile that morning. And so she was like not thinking it was me. She thought the test results didn't match me. And she actually wanted me to take them again. And but anyway, back to the first doctor, he said that he thought maybe my eyes were opening, not closing. He said, you're looking at your eyes maybe like it's closing, but I think that one eye is opening too far. And so that was pretty much where the journey began at that point. And so, yeah, I think just out of the blue.
I mean, it sounds like you were diagnosed with Graves' disease and then later with thyroid eye disease. Is that correct?
Yes. So I had the thyroid eye disease. It came right along with the Graves' disease. So they were just, they were together. And I didn't know that they were two separate things. I thought it was I thought the eye part of it. And even when I read about it, it said that that was just like a symptom. So my eyes were a symptom of Graves' disease. Then my eyes got worse and worse and worse. And then what eventually happened is that they pushed out of their sockets. So
Wow.
yeah, it causes a swelling in the back of your eyes. So the same thing that attacks your thyroid, and it's an autoimmune, Graves' disease is an autoimmune. So it attacks your thyroid, but those same receptors are behind your eyes. And so it was attacking behind my eyes. And as that swelling happened behind my eyes, which happened to be pretty painful, it pushed my eyes out of their sockets. And so as a swimmer, my little goggles just started to fill up with my eyes, and I couldn't, I had to keep getting bigger goggles for my eyes to fit in there. And the same like my sunglasses, I had to give it up on my favorite pair of sunglasses because my eyes bumped into the sunglasses. And
Wow.
so yeah, I mean, there's more to the story in that, how do you kind of cope day to day with something like that, because obviously I was becoming disfigured completely against my will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, y- you've told us a bit about some of these initial symptoms. How long did it take for the doctors to tease out, the sort of difference between one diagnosis and the other, and for you to understand that these were also separate diagnoses?
so it took probably about 4 or 5 years before the endocrinologist said, oh, maybe like in year 4, she said, maybe you should see an eye doctor who specializes with, you know, thyroid eye disease. And, or she just said the eye manifestation of it. She didn't separate it out. She didn't see it as two separate things. And so then I went to a specialist, supposedly a specialist, and he just said, well, you're just going to have to wait it out. He said, because it could take 2 years for your eyes to go through this process. And then once the 2 years is up, he said, then it can be treated like with surgery, possibly with radiation. And so he said, just use a lot of drops. You might put ice on your eyes at night. He said, and then just wait it out for a couple years. That was his
Wow.
advice. And they were like, they measured my eyes when I went in. And initially in the beginning, the woman who, like, they kind of take your statistics when you first arrive. And she said, how long have your eyes been bulging? And it just really, it went right into my heart, because I thought I worked really hard to see myself as normal. And so because I didn't want to interfere with my life. I had built a really beautiful life. I started with very rough beginnings. And, probably like so many people, I put a lot of work into putting the little building blocks together to have a beautiful life. And I didn't want to be sidelined. I didn't want to have to sit in the stands and watch life go by because this had happened. So I was really determined. So when she said that, it was like, it really hurt. And so it just kind of brought me back, like, gosh, there's a problem here. But there's nothing I can do about it. That's how I felt. I go, there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to
Wow.
wait and let it run its course.
Well, I know that you also have a career that you're passionate about. So can you explain how the TED has impacted your work, if at all, as well?
So what the main part of it, because, I have a home office, so I can create websites, going out doing photography again, because I'm using my eyes. And it wasn't my eyesight that was affected. It's certain physical things, I have to be careful how close I get the camera to my eye, things like that. But the other part of it was with my clients, is that, or if I would meet a new client, it's my eyes were just super red. And of course, like very swollen, and it was swollen all around my eyes as well. So I did not look like a normal person. So if I was in a room full of people, you could pick me out right away. Very obvious. So with my clients, I kept it pretty low key. I didn't want to frighten them, because I manage a lot of websites and their businesses are tied to those websites. And so, they need to have confidence in me. So I didn't want to be making anyone feel insecure. So I had to like hold myself to a really high standard to where I could, inspire them with confidence. and also at the same time, be able to take care of myself. So I would go into meetings if it was like a new situation, and the person, my contact, I would tell them, I have this situation with my eyes. Can you please let the people know in the meeting what's going on, so that they're not sitting wondering, like, gosh, is there something wrong with her? Maybe I shouldn't look at her. I don't want to stare. And so I would try to prepare people in small ways like that. And I would, like, one client, he says, oh my gosh, he said, look at your eyes. He said, are you okay? And I said, well, I have Graves' disease. And so then I was staying at their hotel at the time. And then he came back the next day and he said, this is very serious. He said, I read all about it last night. He says, this is very serious, what's going on with you. And I said, well, actually, I said, I'm, doing everything really healthy. I said, it's just that my thyroid got overexcited. It's just like overexcited. And I just assured him, it's like, my diet is excellent. I exercise, I pray, I meditate, like, I'm okay, and I'm here for you. And he was like, then he really relaxed. But so it gives you kind of an idea, like, how I had to approach it. So I didn't even, until probably year 10 or 11, when I totally got on top of everything, was did I relax, to where, like, I've been, like, holding myself so high a standard that I haven't even, been able to kind of process the difficulty of having Graves' disease and thyroid eye disease.
Yeah, I mean, that is so much to juggle because it sounds like you were working to get to your own place of acceptance, right? And um, really manage the condition comfortably, but then also working on other people's expectations too, which is just, I mean, when you're juggling a diagnosis and treatment, that's a lot to hold space for, isn't it?
Uh, it seemed like it. What I tried to do is, and I just felt that I made this decision probably within the first week of finding out that I had Graves' disease, is that, there's always different roads that you can go down. And one is that you can shut down your life. And who would blame you? I mean, you've got Graves' disease, highest numbers you've ever heard. Clearly, you're getting disfigured. There's just a lot to face right now. So just shut it down. And that, just give me a pass, because I've got this difficult thing going on. So that's one way to go. And then there's the other way to go, which is, as I explained earlier, is that I just wanted to keep participating in my own life. And so inside of myself, very quietly, there was this little voice, and it said, how can that be accomplished? And that was, because sometimes I'll take on a work project and it's huge, and I'll think, wow, I don't know if I can design that. And I think, well, let's see, how can that be accomplished? And so that is the road that I took. I took I stayed on the playing field. I wanted to participate, and I just hope that people could just give me the space to just keep going forward. And I knew there was a solution, but I just didn't know where it was.
Well, I mean, it sounds like that wasn't an easy road to walk, but you managed to navigate it for yourself. And I really appreciate you sharing about that because that is a pretty big journey to
Yeah.
be on, and one that obviously was many years in the making. And you've mentioned a few different things that you did to manage the symptoms, the manifestation, the presentation of your diagnosis.
So I think the most important thing is to try to, now I believe there's a lot more known about TED, thyroid eye disease. So there are availability of doctors. I believe there's a website specific to TED doctors. I believe it's .com. And so, people can seek out doctors, which I didn't have available to me at that time, but they can seek out doctors who actually know about thyroid eye disease and the things that can be done. So it isn't a kind of thing that you get and then you have to just watch yourself be disfigured for 2 years before you can ask someone for help. So that was the wrong advice. So yeah, there is help out there available. So I think that that's a very important thing, is to be proactive. And another thing I think that happens very very common and very understandable is that people pull inward. I work with, through some of my website design and such, with people with MS and Parkinson's. And I see that it's very similar thing is people pull in, like they isolate, and then they set themselves apart. And there's an odd kind of a loneliness that happens. And again, it's like, don't go down that road, because the answer is to reach out. It's not to pull in, it's to reach out. And that's where the solutions come. And so the tedoctors.com, if I have that right. So that is, one source that's just excellent and a good starting point. And then there's online communities now that have formed, that were not in existence when I started to learn about Graves' disease and thyroid eye disease. So that is also great. And another really good resource, something that I did, but again, it was kind of later on, it occurred to me, was to watch YouTube videos. And there are YouTube videos where people who have, I was shocked. And this was probably the first time I actually really got, significant tears, is when I heard someone else on a YouTube video talk about their experience with thyroid eye disease. And I thought, that really that's how I learned that I had something separate, really, was watching those videos. And then people with Graves' disease, or family members of people with Graves' disease. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're just, because I had actually been pretty alone in it, not knowing, not on purpose, but to this day, I've not met anybody personally that has thyroid eye disease. So it was, it's like, if you have a friend, you can relate. Like my swimming friends go, wow, that's a great backstroke you have. You go, oh, thanks, I've been perfecting that, but you can't, oh, look at my eyes are falling out of their sockets and it's so embarrassing. How about you? And you don't get that. So
yeah. And would you say also, I mean, especially with professional interactions, was the calling ahead and sort of giving people the heads up about the fact that you had things under control, but this was what was going on? Did you also find that to be supportive as well?
It was. And I have to say that people were across the board very kind to me. I felt that I didn't have anyone, sometimes like with a disability, you might have someone like say something cruel, maybe not knowing, but no one ever really did that. I think the hardest thing for me was little children. So little children, because they don't know, and you see someone whose eyes are like mine looked, very frightening. And I did have like little children, like at where I swim at the sports center, because I was there every day. I swim the mile every day. So I was, I would try to like minimize my eyes, like squint, which is not really hiding them, or, keep my sunglasses on as long as possible. But little kids would actually start to cry, or like, they'd say, Mommy, what's wrong with her? And so they didn't know. And so it was, that part was really painful. Or like, say at the sports center again, if my friend was putting on her makeup and we were talking, and because I didn't have that, I didn't see myself as someone with Graves' disease or with thyroid eye disease. It wasn't my identity. So it's just something that happened. I was working my way through it, but it wasn't who I was. And so I'm standing there with my friend and she's putting on her makeup and we're just talking and laughing. And then I glance in the mirror, when I'm right next to her, and it's too much. It was like just too much. I had to like move away, didn't say anything. If I did, she would have understood and hugged me, but then I would have been in tears. So I had to like not do that. I had to just like move away. And it took me a while to kind of get my balance back again, because I didn't see myself that way. I saw myself as, it's like I'm very big on visualization. So I saw myself as I look today, because I've had 8 surgeries on my eyes to restore them to normalcy. So the thyroid eye disease for me is gone.
Right.
So
Like all visual signifiers you've
Yes.
managed to control. I
Yes.
mean, it's interesting because you mentioned this sort of knock to your confidence in socializing with friends and maybe family. And having lived with TED for more than 10 years now, how have you managed to rebuild and maintain your confidence? What advice would you share with others who are in that place that you were for many years?
So the way that I think about it is I have this little voice inside myself, and I don't exactly know where it came from, but it's very wonderful. And you know how you can have like a critical self, like, oh gosh, you just look terrible, or put on too much weight, or you become too lazy. But I don't have that voice. I don't know where it went, but I probably had it at one time, but it's gone. And so I have this little voice inside of myself that is so encouraging. It's like you would want, like I didn't have like these two loving parents. I never had that. So, but I have inside of myself, there's this very encouraging voice that just says, you know what, you can get through this, just like we can do this. And it just says the most positive things to me. And, I don't know if you watch like TED Talks, which I think are really great. And, it's very inspiring. So I would like expose myself to things that were very upbeat, just listening to a lot of talks, and those voices, I think they just all are inside of me, and those are the voices that I nurtured that. So I would think, oh gosh, I can do it. So there's a lot of positive, I guess you'd call it self-talk. It doesn't exactly feel that way. It's just like there's just this very kind voice inside of me, and it just got stronger and stronger. And the more difficulty I got into, some of the surgeries were very hard, but it just and I think my husband has been great, because I have heard that in some cases, like a husband will leave, or a wife will leave. They just don't want to deal with it. And my husband never made me feel like he was embarrassed about me. He just was, he was so kind, and he helped me through everything that I needed to do as far as getting to where surgeries were, any kind of medical help. But he never just said, and I didn't say that either, like, I'm not going there because I have thyroid eye disease. I'm not going to do that because I have thyroid eye disease. I never said that. I just thought, how can it be accomplished? So,
Mhm.
and he just stood right by me. So I think that has been huge.
Yeah. I'm wondering as well. I mean, how important is it to find the right support network personally, but also your care team medically? I mean, you sort of touched on this earlier, but it sounds like that's been a huge part of the experience for you.
So yes, I definitely, I think I went down some wrong roads, not knowingly in the beginning, because I was not getting very good advice. So, and it wasn't like the situation I had wasn't really being properly identified. So, and I think that like with the Graves' disease, my doctor just said, well, she said, endocrinologist, it would be easier for me if we just took out your thyroid, because it was hard, like getting the numbers down. And I said, but if you take out my thyroid, I said, there's a lot of negative consequences to that. And plus, my thyroid was like perfectly normal. If you looked at it, scanned it, it was like perfect. And I just felt that just if I could just be really strong and healthy, work my way through it, just get little tips along the way, that I just thought I'm not a good host for it. I'm not a good host for illness. And I didn't make friends with it. I just thought, okay, you're passing through, but you're not staying. So I think the medical people that I came to find, actually through watching YouTube, I found some people to help me, learned about what the situation is, found some people to help me. Again, it'd be easier because of tedoctors.com, because you can start there. I didn't have that. So I think that once I found a doctor who could help me, he said, I could help you look like you looked before you got thyroid eye disease. And then I read a lot about him, former journalist, so really good at research. And so I did a lot of research, and he was who he said he was. And so I just entrusted that he could help me. It wouldn't be necessary now. There are medications that can do what surgery can do. So things have changed and evolved. So I think once people are educated, and then they know what thyroid eye disease is, how it relates to Graves' disease, that there is help. there's specific doctors that you can go to, and that there are solutions that, even you could bypass the surgery. But again, I didn't have that available.
I mean, it must have been a relief to be able to, despite the amount of time it took for you to find the resources that supported you in the way that worked for you. Was it a relief finding the right care team, finding the specialists who were eventually able to support you in your healing?
It was a relief. Yes, it was definitely a relief. And the people in that particular office, they were so respectful, and they saw me as I saw myself, which wasn't, I didn't see myself as a damaged person. So they saw me as the possibility. And that's how I saw myself, as the possibility of, like healing, and then just being able to get my appearance back. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, before we go, if you could tell us, I mean, you've mentioned teddoctors.com, and looking on YouTube and even looking at inspirational content through TED Talks and other resources out there. But could you tell us about your favorite resources that have helped you along your journey, that may be also supportive for listeners tuning into this episode?
Oh, there is like social media. So I have this Listen to Your Eyes Facebook. So that is a really, it's very fun in a way, because it connects me. Like I said, I have not met anyone with thyroid eye disease, but by going onto that Facebook page, it's really great because there's other people. And then also they list resources on that page. And so that can be also really helpful. And for me, it's exciting to see that if someone today, you know, got my situation, that there would be so much more help. There's so much more known, and there's so much more that they can do. But again, it involves reaching out, not pulling in. So
Yeah,
that,
and it sounds like for your journey as well, and something that is being reflected for anyone who's going through a similar experience, being able to find the emotional and community support is as important as the direct medical care, right?
oh, sure, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So yeah, I think that that's been really helpful. And, I do want to say that, I'm back swimming now that the pandemic uh, has ended. I was able to do the mile my first time in, which was after a
Wow.
year being out. And I was very clumsy and slow, but but I was able to do it. But just, once I got onto this side of in the solution for the problem of Graves' disease and thyroid eye disease, like my Graves numbers they're all normal now. So that's, didn't have to take out my thyroid or kill it with radiation. But so I was at the sports center just before the pandemic, because this is all really recent that everything has been, um, I've gotten this solution. And there was a little girl there, and I was still, even though I look just like normal now, I don't stand out. And so she was in a locker right next to me, and I still like turned away, like I didn't want her to talk to me or look at me. And so she said, excuse me. She said, can I ask you? And oh, my heart just sank. And she said, what's your favorite color? And I said,
Mm.
oh, I like purple. And I said, well, what's your favorite color? And she said, well, I like pink. I said, oh, that's why you're wearing a pink dress. And she said, yes, I like pink. And she said, do you have a purple dress? I said, I don't. Do you think I should? She said, I think you should. You should have a purple
Mm.
dress. I said, well, thank you. I'm going to get one. And so, and then it just kind of, wound up the conversation. But for me, it was a huge victory. It was a huge victory because I was just standing there talking to that little girl. She was talking to me. She wasn't frightened. She didn't even register anything about my eyes. And that I just knew that at that point, I was on the other side. It was
Mm.
like my vision had come true. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Christine, for sharing that. And thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me here, and for, honestly, all of your great work, just, bringing to light some of the things that, people suffer with very quietly.
And that wraps up our first season of Listen to Your Eyes. We thank you all so much for listening and sharing. For more information about thyroid eye disease, visit thyroideyes.com and join the Listen to Your Eyes Facebook and Instagram communities. And to find a TED specialist in your area, visit teddoctors.com. Until next time, listen to your eyes.